Hi guys, it's Destiny and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we'll be building a fully functional to-do list app with Django from scratch. And honestly, this is going to be a really fun video. You'll learn about class-based views to user authentications like the login, logout, registration function, and learn how to implement a search function to your app. Before we get started, do me a solid and drop a like on this video. You can also consider subscribing as it will mean the world to me. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now, before we go ahead and start building out the full app from scratch in this course, I want to show you guys what the finished product of this app is going to look like. So first off, you get a registration page over here, so you can go ahead and make a new user. Let's say I want to make a new user and let's call her name Karen or whatever you want to call the name. So I'm going to give this a password. So I'm going to say testing321 as a password, or you could pass in whatever you want and confirm the password testing321. And when you click on register now, just take note, it automatically sends the user to the logged in page, to the task list. So in here, as you can see, there is no listing item, so you can go ahead and add new from here, or you can add a new one from here. So as you can see over here, there's a logout link. So when you click on this, it takes you to the login page. So from here, you can go ahead and log in as Karen, if you can remember. And this is going to be Karen, and this is over here is going to be testing321, and click on login now. So you see when you click on login, it brings you to the task list page, and first off it says hello Karen, you have 0 incomplete task. So from here you can go ahead and add a new task. You can either click on this or click on this one over here, and it brings you to the task page. And for any reason you don't want to create a new task, you could just go back, and let's say I want to add a new task over here. I could just say something like clean house, and you can add a description, something like remember to clean the house today, remember to clean the house today. So with this now I can go ahead and save task, and I want to create a couple more tasks. Let me see something like get milk, and click on save task. So as you can see, we have clean house, we have get milk, and let's say I want to add one more, and this should be something like let's say get flowers or something like that. So let's just say get flowers and click on save. So as you can see, we have clean house, get milk, get flowers. So when you click on this now, it brings you over here that you can update. So we can either update this, so you say clean house, and let's just pass in updated. So we're actually gonna do that. This was updated. So when you click on save task, as you can see, it's successfully updated it. So now we can go ahead and delete task. For example, want to delete the get milk, you can click on this, and it says, are you sure you want to delete this task, get milk? Yes, I want to delete it. So you delete this, it brings you back here. Now let's say you already got a flower and you just want that to get out of your to-do list, but you don't want to get it deleted. So you can just click on this and click on completed and click on save task. So as you can see, it strikes it out and gives a green icon over here to show that your task was successfully completed and all that. So as you can see, the incompleted one has this, and over here you can see it automatically detects how many complete and incomplete tasks that we have. It says you have 1 incomplete task. For example, if you come over here and check this off, as you can see, it says you have 2 incomplete tasks, and everything is working really fine. And finally, let's go ahead and check out the search function over here. Let's say you want to search for clean or something like that. Now when you click on search, you see it brings up only the clean, and let's say you want to search for get. When you click on search, it brings up only the get, and you can go ahead and log out. So as you can see, everything is looking really fine, and this is what we're going to be building in this course. Hopefully you'd find it fun and really entertaining to go ahead and build this, and with this you're going to learn a whole lot of things in Django, even if you're a beginner or even if you're a professional in Django. So I'll be splitting this video into 4 sections. So this 4 sections is just to make you guys not get bored of watching this video. And for some reasons, if you don't understand the first one, I don't want to just keep rushing everything on the same single video, and the video is supposed to be like 2 hours long or something like that, but I just split it to 4 parts so you guys would actually find it interesting. The first part is going to be basic configurations. The second part is going to be working with fully class-based views. The third part is going to be the user authentication, and finally we're going to go ahead and style our form. So as you can see, this has a really nice styling over here. You're going to learn how to make this from scratch. So let's get started. Okay guys, so the first thing we'll be doing is go ahead and create a new folder where we'll be storing all our project files. And in order to do that, you want to open up your command prompt. If you're on a Windows, if you're on a Mac, you want to open up your terminal. So my command prompt is opened up now, and I want to go to my desktop. So I'll just cd to my desktop and make a new project file over there. So I'll say mkdir, which is make directory, and I'm just gonna name that. Let's just name it to-do list. So I'm just going to name it to-do list, just like that. And I want to go into the folder to-do list, and in here I want to make a virtual environment. So I'm going to make a virtual environment, and if you want to do that on the Windows, it's py-m venv, then followed by whatever you want the name of a virtual environment to be. In my case, I just want it to be venv, so let's just stick with the same naming convention, and we should give this a moment or two, and it should successfully install or let's say make the virtual environment. And after that, we want to go ahead and activate it. So let's wait for this. Okay, and as you can see, it made the virtual environment. Now in order to activate it, all you have to do is call the name of the virtual environment followed by a backslash, then script with a uppercase S /activate .bat, just like this. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and install Django into the virtual environment. So you want to install Django into the virtual environment. Make sure you have an active internet connection. Then all you have to do is say pip install Django. So we say pip install, then we install Django, and let's give this some moments and it should install. Okay, and as you can see, Django successfully installed. So if you want to go ahead and check out all the libraries that came with Django, you could just say pip freeze, and you just say pip freeze, just like that. And you see we get all this. So I got all those warning over here just because my internet connection wasn't active. So when I turned it on, then it successfully installed Django. So with all this, we are done to go ahead and start doing some other things like creating an app. So before we do that, we want to go into we want to first of all create a Django project. So we're going to say Django-admin, and you can see it brings up all these commands over here. So we want to use this one which says start project. Let's go ahead and use it. So we're going to say Django-admin, then start project. Then we should give our project a name, start project. Let me make sure the spelling is correct, just like that. Then we should give our project a name. In my case, I want to give it something like to-do list prj, something like that. So let's just say to-do list prj. So it's to-do list project. I just want to know the difference between the project and the app. So to-do list prj is good for this one. We could just go ahead and hit enter, and the next thing you want to do is cd into it. So we cd into to-do list prj, and now we are in there. Now we can go ahead and make an app quickly. Let's just say python manage.py, python manage.py start app, and we can name our app to do. Yeah, let's just name our app to do. And when we hit enter, as you can see, it successfully made the app. So all you have to do now is open up a code editor or an IDE, whatever you want to use. In my case, I'll be using PyCharm. It's one of my favorite now, and Visual Studio Code, it's still good. You could use whatever you want. So opening up to PyCharm, all you have to do is come over to file, then you want to click on open, and I want to go to my desktop. So let me just locate my desktop over here, and let's see, this is my desktop. Now I want to come over to the list. So this is it. I just click on OK, and it should open it up on this window. So as you can see, it opens it up on this window. Okay, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and run our development server. So you want to open up your terminal and make sure you are in your root directory. So your root directory is wherever you manage the py file is sitting. So this is it over here. That means our root directory is in to-do list prj. So you want to see the into to-do list prj, just like that, and we want to run our development server. So we can say python manage.py run server, and let's give this a couple seconds, and it should successfully run our server just like this. And as you can see, it's successfully installed Django and everything is working fine. So we are still seeing this page over here because we have the URL configured. Now let's go ahead and do that now. So you want to open up your app. This is it over here, and you also want to open up your project. So in our project, firstly we want to go over to settings.py and install our app. So in settings.py, you want to say import OS over here at the top of the file. This is it over here, import OS. Then you want to come down, and so this OS that we imported over here, what we'll be using it to do is to configure our template. So we go ahead and do everything now that we are in the settings.py. Firstly, let's install our app. So our app name is todo followed by .apps. Then we want to open up our app over here. So let's just open up this apps, and we want to copy this to do config, and we should come back to our settings.py. So this is the settings.py. Then we want to say to do config, just like this. Now the next thing we want to do is come over to the template section, and in the dirs, what you want to say is os.path .join. So this is for our template. Now we want to join the base directory with the template folder. So whatever template folder I'll be creating, we want to join it with this. This is pretty much it that we'll be doing here, although we'll still be working with the settings.py in this video, but for now this is all we want to do here. So let's just go ahead and cancel this. So we quit that. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and configure some URLs. So in order to do that, you want to close this off to open up your main URL files, which is your project's URL, and we want to import include from here. So what we're going to use this to do is to include the urls.py file that we'll be creating in our app. So we will do that in a second, but for now let's give this a part, and we're going to define an empty string over here followed by include. So the name of the URLs is going to be in here. It's going to be in to do, and it's going to be named urls.py somewhere here. So we want to say to do, so it's in to do /urls sorry, not /to do .urls, just like this. So this is what we want to do. Now in your to do app, you want to right click and create a new Python file, and we're going to name this urls, just like this. So what you want to say is from Django.urls, we want to import path. So import path like this, and that's pretty much what we need. Now we want to go ahead and define a URL pattern down here. So we're going to say URL patterns, just like this, is equal to a list, and this list should have a path in it, and a path in it is going to have an empty string, which is for our home page. Now we want to go ahead and import views. So you need to have a basic knowledge of Django in order to understand what's really going on in here, but if you don't, just follow along with what you're doing. We're going to be explaining everything that we are doing as we keep going. So you want to import path, and in order to do that, you could just say from you want to import views, so you say from dot import views, just like this. So we just want to return a very simple view, and the view is going to be called home, just like this. So the next thing we want to do is come over to our views.py, and let's create a very simple view. So it's going to be a function view, and take notes on this course, we won't be using a function view, we'll be using the class-based views. So class-based views make it very easy to work with things like a blog, notepad, and to-do list, and all that. So we'll be using a class-based view and not function-based view, although you could go ahead and use the function-based view if you want, but I prefer the class-based view for this kind of projects. So we're going to say define home request, then we want to return a simple HTTP response, but in order to do that, we want to import it. So we're going to say from Django.http import HTTP response, just like that. Now the next thing we want to say over here is return HTTP response, and let's just say working. So this is gonna tell us if it's working. So if it's working, you're gonna see working here and all that. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and check if we have any problem with our development server, and this says yes, we have a problem with our settings.py. Let's go ahead and open our settings.py, and the problem is at the top over here. So it says pathlib import. I think there was a problem with this. Now let's just undo all this and see what the problem was. So we undo all this, and okay, this is it right now. Let's see if everything is working fine. We run the server again, everything is working fine. Now we want to import OS. So I just redid everything that I did because there was an error. So we import OS, we install our app again. To do that, maybe yours should be working totally fine, but there was a typo in mine, that's why I'm redoing everything. So there's going to be to do.apps.to do config, and you want to go ahead and cross check to make sure that it's really what it is. So this is the one you actually want to put in here, and that's actually it. Now the last thing I want to do is go ahead and configure our templates, but for now we don't need it. So let's just go ahead and run our saver and see, and as you can see, we see working over here, which means everything is totally working fine. So right now we can go ahead and continue doing whatever we want to do. Now let's go ahead and create a models.py. So in our models.py, we want to create a model, and the name of this model is going to be tasks. So the name of this model is going to be tasks, and it's going to inherit from models.model, or you could say that's the parameters that should go in it, models.model. So firstly, we need our foreign key model. So that's going to be user is equal to models.foreign key. And before we go ahead and start using this, we want to import user. So you want to import user. It's very simple. You say from Django.contrib.auth.model model imports user. So we're importing this user. Now this user is just going to help us manage everything that has to do with our user in our application. So it's going to help us manage everything that we want to do with our user in our application. So we're going to have user first of all as an argument in here. Now the next one we want to have is onDelete. So onDelete is going to be set to models.cascade. So what onDelete does, onDelete just simply does things like if our user is deleted, what do we want to do with their data. So for example, if our user is deleted and let's say they have some to-do list that they haven't like completed or something like that, what do we want to do with those ones? Do we want to delete them or do we want to leave them? In this case, we want to go ahead and delete them. So we're going to say onDelete is equal to models.cascade, and yours might add a parenthesis like this. Take a close look at that. There is no parentheses, and that's all you need to do for here. Now the next thing you want to do is define null equal to true. So null is going to be equal to true and blank is going to equal to true. So we don't need anything for those right of the stats. So the next thing we need to define is a title. So this title is going to be like the title of the to-do list. It could be something like get milk, or it could be something like rake leaves. Then that's what the title is going to be about. Then description can be something like remember to rake leaves today. That can be the description, but the title is going to be short and precise. So this is going to inherit from models.character field. So you can call that char field, whatever. So char field like helps us define just really short words, for example like titles, block title and all that. But if you want to add like a whole bunch of words in there, you should use the text field and not the char field. So the char field helps you do things like add titles, and pretty much that's it. So we want to give this a max length of 200 and we can give this a null of true, just like that. Now the next thing we need is a description. So description, and this one is going to help our user input a description for what they want their to-do list to be. It's going to give our users the ability to add a description. For example, let's say their title was something like get flowers, then the description is going to go in depth, just like description itself is self-explanatory. Description is going to go in depth, maybe to remind them of some things that they need to do, maybe get a rose flower and all that, or let's say get 3 flowers, 1 for the sitting room and all that. So that's what the description is going to do, and it's going to inherit from models.textfeed. You remember I told you that if you want to like add a whole lot of word, you shouldn't use char field. In that case you should text field. So we are not going to give this a max length, because automatically Django knows that a whole lot of word is going to be going in there, so there's like an infinite amount of word. All we need to give this is null is equal to true, so we do not need anything in this. Blank is equal to true. At the start off, we don't need anything in the description space, something like that. So the next one we need is complete. So this is going to help us check if the to-do is complete. For example, let's say you want to get a house. Okay, that's way too much for a to-do list. Okay, let's just say you want to get some drugs or something like that. So you want to get some drugs. If they are completed, this is where you have to come over and like turn it off, or like tick it that it's completed, something like that. So this is just like a checkbox. When it's completed, you come over here and check it, and it checks that particular item in the to-do list as completed. So that's why we are naming it complete over here. So it's inheriting from models.boolean field, and it's gonna have a default, and this default is gonna be false, because when you make a task in the to-do list, like let's say you just made a task today, you don't want that task to be completed. You just made it, you haven't done anything, and it's completed. So that's gonna be like an error. But even if you leave it, nothing is gonna happen. But it doesn't really make sense. Logically thinking, it doesn't make sense, because you make a list today of what to do, it shouldn't yet be completed. Now the final one we need is created. So this is just gonna help us check for when the task was created. So this is just going to be a time. Now it should inherit from models dot, it's going to be date time. So there is one called date time field. There's one that you could do something like from date time import date time, then you can use it down here, but we are not going to use that one. We're just going to stick with date time field. So date time field, you need something like auto underscore add dot now, and that's going to be set to true. So it's gonna, whenever we create a new task in the list, just take a just take note of what I'm about to say. So whenever we create a new task in the list, it's automatically gonna like take a snapshot of the time then and attach it. So what particular time is it? Take a close look at my time over here. You're gonna see that it's 11:53 p.m. in the evening, yeah, night, whatever. So let's say I create a task now in the to-do list. It's automatically gonna snap this time, 11:53 p.m. and it's just gonna like put it down here. So that's when we created one of the tasks. So that's pretty much all we need. The next thing we want to do is define a $str. So you don't know what $str is, it's just like underscore str, then it's gonna take in self like that. Now we want to return self the title, so we'll be using this much one to self the title, and we also need the meta. So we're gonna say class meta, just like that. And finally the ordering. So I'll explain what ordering is, but before that let me just go ahead and put it. So we want the ordering to be let's say complete. So the ordering is going to be something like, you want the completed task to be at the top, or you want it to be down. So I want the completed to be at the down, so that's why I'm using ordering complete. So with this, that's pretty much all we need for the models.py. Let's go ahead and create it and close it. We are beginning to have a whole lot of tab over here. Let's go ahead and close up all this. We do not need this one any longer, so we're just gonna close it. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and access our admin panel. So it's, so access your admin panel, you just come over to your browser and you go to port 8000/admin, and we are going to get an error. As you can see, the error is already here. Now this error says no such table Django session. So it says no such table Django session, and that's because we haven't made any migration, and most importantly we haven't migrated anything to our database. So let's go ahead and start doing that now. The first thing we want to do is open up our terminal and open up a new tab in our terminal. So in here I want to cd into the project folder, so that's to-do list prj. If you remembered, to-do list prj, yes, can be whatever. So in here, firstly I want to make migrations. Basically, let me just tell you when to make migrations. Whenever you do something in your models.py, so let's say you changed this created to something like time created. So this is just an example, time created, then you want to make migrations. So take note of that. Whenever you make changes to your models.py, you want to make migrations. So let's go ahead and make migrations, and it's python manage.py, then make migrations, just like that. And you should give this a couple of seconds, and if you take a close look, you see that it made this migration at 0.001 underscore initial.py, which is over here. Let's go ahead and look for it here. As you can see, it made this new thing. Now it's said create model tags, so it's created the model tags. Now the next thing, okay, let's just go ahead and access this again. You see that we are still getting this error, and finally we have to migrate. So when you migrate, that error should be successfully resolved or something like that. So you say migrate and give this a couple of seconds. You should migrate everything to our database, and I think it's done now. So you should refresh this, and you see it brings up the Django admin login page. Now we want to log in with a username and a password, so just click on login, and what do you notice? It says please enter the correct username and password for a staff account. And how do we get the correct username and password since we do not know it? So in that case, you want to create a super user. So in order to do that, all you have to do is say python manage.py create super user, and you hit enter on your keyboard. Now it brings in this input field. Firstly, it says username, leave blank to use Destiny, so I just want to leave blank and use Destiny. Email address, I don't need an email address for now. Password, I'm just going to add a dummy password, and I'd recommend you use Destiny1 if you don't want to always keep changing password and remember password for your project. So Destiny1 Django automatically detects that as a strong password. I don't know why, but whatever. So as you can see, it says super user created successfully. Now I want to come over here again and log in with the details, like the credentials that we created in here. So all you have to do is populate that in this fields, then click on login, and successfully we have our Django admin running. And you might be looking at this, yours might be like light theme, all that. Mine is in dark theme because I changed my Windows theme to dark, so that's why mine is dark. And you can see everything on my browser is totally dark. So if yours is like in a light mode or something like that, don't freak out, everything is still good and working fine. So you take a close look at this. We are kind of encountering an error, but no error is showing up. And that error to me is that our models is not showing up over here. You remember those models that we created in here? It's supposed to show up like somewhere here, but it's not. And that's because we haven't registered it in our admin. So go open up your admin.py. This is it over here. Now you want to import the model. So you're going to say from .models import task. So it's task. Now to register it, we say admin.site.register. Okay, let me get a spelling of that. So we say register, and we want to register tasks just like that. So I think the spelling of this is not correct. It's not a register, it's a register task. So when we come over here now and refresh, you see we should get tasks. So we click on this now. We come over to add task, and as you can see, we can add some dummy tags over here. For example, let's say something like rake leaves. So I want to say rake leaves, and I want to say something like remember to rake leaves today. Remember to rake leaves today, and let's get a spelling of that. So I want to set this to user destiny and click on save. As you can see, we have one task. This showing down here. Now we want to add another task. Okay, we want to add another task, and let's say this is going to be something like get milk or whatever. Let's just say, okay, let's say get flowers. Then we're gonna say something like get a rose and sunflower today. Get a rose and sunflower today, whatever. Then we are not gonna assign this to any user. Just click on save, and as you can see, now we have two items in here. In fact, let's go ahead and add another one. So this is gonna be like clean house. So we're gonna say clean house, and we're gonna say clean the houses today, and something like remember the storehouse or something. So remember the storehouse. I just put something like that and click on save. So now we have one task with a user destiny, and we have two tasks with no users. So with all this, we should be very good to go. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and start using our class-based views. So the first one we'll be using is the list view, and the list view is simply going to help us list out everything that we have in here in our database. Now how do we do that? All we have to do is come over to our views.py and want to get rid of this function-based view. Now in order to use the class-based view, firstly you want to import each and every one of them. So there's list view, there's update view, there's delete view, there's create, and there is detail view. So it's just 5 views. Now in order to import the list view, what you want to do is go ahead and say from django.views.generic. Okay, for the views.generic.list, we want to import the list view just like that. Now in order to define a class-based view, like a class-based view, and that's going to be inheriting from the list view, it's very easy. All you have to say is class, then you give this whatever name you want, and let's just stick with a very easy name that we can remember. That's going to be task list. So for the update view, it's going to be something like task update. For the delete view, it's going to be something like task delete. So in here I want to pass in list view, so it's inheriting from this list view that we imported over here. Now the next thing I want to go say is like just define a model that we're going to use for this, and in my case it's task. But right now we are getting an error, and this error is going to seem something like unresolved reference task, and as you can see, that's because we are not importing tasks. So we're going to say from .models import task, and everything should be working really fine. So with this, now if you come over to our desktop, come over here and refresh, we would get an error. So we are getting an error because we have no URL. One, we have no template. So go ahead and open up your urls.py, and you want to import this. You want to import this task list that we did over here. So we're going to import it on our URLs in order to use it. And in order to do that, you have to say from .views import. So you remember it's task list, just like that. Now we want to get rid of this over here, and now we're going to have task list dots, and we have to call a method which puts this as view, just like this. And finally it's gonna have a name, so we're gonna use these names to later work with our buttons and link and all that. So this is gonna have name of task, just like that. Now when we come over here and refresh, we should get a template does not exist error, and it says template does not exist at slash. todo/task underscore list.html. So it's expecting our templates to be in a folder or in a directory called to do, and the name of the template is going to be task on the list.html. So let's just go ahead and copy this. We're just going to stick with the particular name that's in here. Now the next thing I want to do is come over here to our projects folder, and in our projects folder we want to create our template folder. You remember it said that it's looking for the template in a folder named to do. Now in this to do app, you want to right click on it and click on new, then come over to directory, and we're going to type our template. So we create a new folder named template. Now you also want to click on it, come over to new, and you want to create another directory in it, and this is going to be whatever the name of your app is. In my case, the name of my app is to do, so the name of your own should be whatever. Let's say the name of your app is whatever test, then the name of this folder should be test. So take a close look at what I did. In my to do app, I created a new folder named the template. Then in the templates folder, I created a new app and named it to do. So I just named it what the name of my app is. Now in here, that's where I'm going to create the HTML file. So it's going to be named task underscore list.html, and let's just make sure that everything is working fine. I'm just going to define a h1 tag, and we could call this whatever. Let's say I want to call this my to do list, and this is just to check if everything is working really fine. Now when you refresh, you see that nothing is still working over here, and I think that should be from our terminal. We want to go ahead and break this, and let's make sure that this is not loading up again, and we want to rerun our server just like this. Now when we come over here, you see it says my to-do list. So this is working really fine. Finally, we have a template that's working fine. And maybe you do not have your templates configured in your settings.py already. You want to do that over here. But when using class-based views, it's not really necessary you do all this. But in case you are working on another project that you're not using class-based views, you want to make sure that you import OS, then make sure that you join here. So just take note of that. So we have this working really fine now. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and list out all the things that were in our database. So we want to list out these 3 tasks. We want to list them out here, just down here like this. So how do we do that? Back to our task list.html, we just want to create a table. So let's just create a table, and this table in it is going to have a table row just like this, and this table row is going to have a table header, and this table header is going to have a name of items. So this is it, items. Now the next thing we want to do is use a for loop and go through all the tasks that we have in our database. And how do we do that? We just come down here and we open up double curly braces with 2% in them, and in the middle of the percentage sign. So if you don't know what this is just like a way of writing Python codes in Django. So you want to write Python codes in Django, this is the way to do it. You remember that if you want to write a Python code, you could just say something like if request.method and all that. Now if you want to write it like in a HTML file in Django, you have to open up something like this, 2 curly brackets, then in it there's going to be 2%, and in the middle of the %, then you can do whatever you want to do. Now I want to say for tasks, so I want to say for task in object underscore list, object underscore list. So basically the context name is going to be object underscore list. So that's what the class-based view is going to be looking for, object underscore list. And we can still modify this. I know that you might not understand all this that we're doing now, but just don't freak out with time. All this should get into you. So just follow along with all we are doing, and maybe I should proceed in this course, you would understand everything that we're doing. So down here, I want to create a new table row. This table row is going to have task, sorry, not a table row, it's going to be a table data. So table row, then in it there's going to be a table data just like this. Before we end the follow, we want to also add like I want us to do some like that's going to check if the database is empty. So it's going to check if there's nothing here, then wanted to say something like there's no item in the list. So that's what we want to do. Let's go ahead and do it. Down here you want to open up 2 curly brackets like we have been doing, then in it you want to just type out empty. So just like that, empty. Then below this we want to define a history tag. Now this history tag is going to say no items in list. Then there's gonna be an add button that's gonna like allow you to add an item to the list. Item, for now there's no URL, they just leave this as add new item, just like that. So add new item. Now when we come over here and let's say we want to refresh this, now we are still getting this, and that's because we haven't ended up our for loop. Let's go ahead and end our for loop. So in order to end your for loop, you just open up two curly brackets like that, open this up, and we're gonna say end for. Now let's see if everything works fine. So as you can see, it's not showing up here, and that's because we have object.title over here. We are supposed to have some, like, let's say we are supposed to have task.title. So we have task.title, and that's because we say for task in object_list. So whatever we use here, that's what we should have in here. So let's say I say something like for task a whole lot of A. Now if I run this, we are not gonna have the same thing. All I have to do is use this in here and call .title. Now we're gonna have all this. So just stick with what we have before, but we don't like the name of this object_list, and that's the context object name. So we can change this when working with class-based views. And how do we do that? So in order to change this, you want to go ahead and open up your views.py, and down here we are gonna say context object name should be set to task. Yeah, we just want to use task. So in here in the task list, instead of using this, now we can use task, and when you refresh here, everything will still be working fine. But there is gonna be a confusion. Now it says for task in task. Let's say you want to use S over here, so it's gonna say something like for task in task. Yeah, now if you refresh, you're not gonna get anything. That's because you have to add an S over here. I told you whatever you use here is what you're gonna use in here. So when you refresh, you get all this, and everything is working pretty fine. That's what I want to do. Now we could go ahead and add some links, but for now let's not add any link. We're still gonna add links in the upcoming tutorials. Now let's go ahead and work with DetailView. So work with DetailView, and in order to work with DetailView, you want to come over to your views.py. So DetailView is just gonna help us. Okay, you know, we have this clean house. So this is it over here, clean house. Now when we click on this, it brings up the description, it brings up the title, and it brings up the name of the user that's actually working with the file now. So that's what detail is gonna do for us. Now how do we do that? In our views.py, we need to import DetailView, and in order to do that, you're going to say from django.views.generic.detail import DetailView. So with this, now we can define a new class, and this can be called task detail, just like that, and it should inherit from DetailView, and there's going to be a colon over there at the back. Now the model is going to be task, as we have been using. The model is going to be task, just like that. Now let's create a URL for it, but before we create a URL, let's go ahead and create a template. Okay, I just want you to understand the way templates in class-based views worked, and in order to understand that better, we want to create a URL. So in order to create a URL, this is going to be a dynamic one. So firstly, import the task detail. So we import the task detail. Then secondly, we're gonna say part, and this part is gonna be, I told you earlier, it's gonna be a dynamic one. So we want to go over to task, then we want to go over to slash an integer. So I'll explain this just like this. Then finally we're gonna go over to slash. So this is a primary key, and the primary key is integer. Let me go ahead and explain what this means. So when you click on this house over here, what do you notice? Let's see. Okay, we are getting an error. We should add a comma over here. So refresh this, and hopefully it should be working fine. And let's see. Okay, let's just get rid of this up to here, and we are still getting an error. Let's see. It says okay, parts missing one required positional argument view. Okay, we need to add it over here. Let's go ahead and add task detail. Task detail dot as view, just like we have been doing, and everything should work fine now. So everything is working fine now. When we refresh, we have this. So when we come over to task and come over to clean house, what do you notice at the URL? So as you can see, it came to task/tree. So /tree is this third one over here. So it's this third one, rake leaves. Okay, sorry, it's this one, clean house. So that's /3, and that's what our URL used to identify that this is clean house. It came over to task/3. So that's the same thing we want to do over here. It's going to come over to the primary key, and the primary key for this particular one now is 3. It can be whatever. So we say task slash integer colon pk. Just do this. If you don't understand, you should understand this as time goes on. Then finally we want to give this a name, and this name could be something like, let's say, task detail. We'll be using this to route buttons and all that later in this video. So when you come over here now, and let's say all this is still working fine, let's say we want to access the first task. So we say task like this /1. Now we're gonna get template does not exist, so it is expecting a template that has the name of task_detail.html. Let's go ahead and create that. You remember to be create templates in here. So we say this, it's task_detail, you hit enter, and hopefully this should be working fine. So in the task detail.html, let's just define a very simple h1, and we're gonna call this task just like that. Now as you can see, everything is working totally fine. Now I want to go ahead. Okay, firstly let's open up our views.py. So there's something I want to show you. We can change the context variable name objects, and that's because we have nothing over here. We need to define, like, we need to get the details of whatever we go into it, and in order to do that we need to call a variable object. I know you might not understand, don't freak out or whatever, but just follow along. In the task detail over here, you want to open up curly bracket like this and call objects in order to see some things pop up over here. So the first one is rake leaf, and let's come over to the second one. You see is get flowers and all that. So it's automatically detecting the particular one that we have in here. So I want to change this object over here. I don't like the name object. You remember how we changed the one for task_list.html? We used context object name, so that's the same thing we're going to be using here. So just context object name, we'll paste it down here. Now when we refresh, we would not, okay, we are still getting this, and when we come over to task detail, we want to change this to task, so everything should still be working totally fine. But let's say we add something like s. Now we are not going to get anything, so that we're going to stick with task, and that's because that's what we are using over here. So as you can see, everything is working pretty fine now. I hope you really understand the way everything is working. Now the next thing I want to do is go ahead and change our template name. So have you asked yourself this? How about the name of your template is not the same thing as it is? For example, task_detail, let's say it's something like task. Let's go ahead and refactor it, and let's say I want to get rid of the detail. You remember it said that I need a template with task_detail, but now I got rid of the detail. Now if you come over here and refresh, you get an error. It says template does not exist at this. So it's need a template with the name of task_detail. Now we need to define that. And how do we do it? When our template name is task, now you could use something else named template name here in class-based views, and you could just put in the name of your template. It's in todo, and it's task.html. So when you come over here and refresh, everything should be working totally fine the way it was, and there is no biggie. Now let's add some link for DetailView in the task_list. So in the task list over here, we want to come down here in the title, and we're going to define another table data, and there's going to be a link in it. So this link is going to link to the detail. So we're going to have a URL, and it's named task-detail. If you take a close look at the URL, this is it over here. It's named task/detail. So that's the one we want to go over to. And finally, we want to go by ID. So it's going to be task.id, just like this. Okay guys, so when making the button in the URL, we defined all this, and the name is task details. Take note, TASKS details. Then in the task_list.html, we passed in this, we made href, double curly brackets, percentage sign, then in it there was URL, a string that has tasks detail, then finally we have tasks.id, and we're using s because we have s over here. So let's say we get rid of this s. Now we are not going to get anything, we're going to get this error But when it's S, we have this, and when we click on this, it takes us into the view, and as you can see, everything is working totally fine. So in here, you can go ahead and do more things, like for example, we can say, let's change this to P. Now we can say something like task. We can now call like task dot description, something like that, and it should work totally fine. But now we don't want to do that. Now let's just stick with what we have now. So as you can see, if you click on this, it takes you into this. If you click on this, it takes you into the individual task. So that's it for this video, and hopefully you learned something about the detail view and about the list view. And if you did, do not forget to drop a like on this video and consider subscribing. And in the next video, we'll go ahead and start working with some of the views: the create view, the update view, the delete view. I don't want to make this video so long, so that's why I want to stop it right here and break it into sections so you don't get bored or whatever. So that's pretty much it for this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to drop a like to support me and my channel, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Mad love, peace out.